Okay. All right, welcome everybody to our Wednesday night class. For those who don't know me, my name is Gregor. I will be teaching tonight's class. I'd like to remind everybody that I do, besides not being able to walk well, I do have an eye condition called retinitis pigmentosa, and it means I can see about this much of everybody. So it's like I have this big tube in front of my face and I can't see everybody over there, and poor Becky disappears as soon as I look this far away. So if somebody has a hand raised and I don't see them, soft objects are fine, but maybe just a wave or a yell. My name is like Gregor, or something. But soft objects I'll deal with. Hard objects, please don't. No, don't throw those at me. We're going to be talking about Hezekiah tonight. The reason I took Hezekiah is because I didn't know anything about him. And I've always been a firm believer in the best way to learn something is to try to teach a class on it. So I will do my best. The material we have on Hezekiah in the class was amazing and interesting and focused an awful lot on his death. Before we get to that, I'd like to talk about the first half of... Is this thing on?
There's a switch on the side, Gregor, that needs to get pushed all the way up.
And it maybe had a battery because it was pushed all the way up already.
That's the laser on it.
Nope, laser works. Am I hitting the wrong button? Yes, I was hitting the wrong button.
Well, that's the
Okay. So I just closed it, right? Help the poor computer guy who doesn't know how to use a computer.
If you want the spacebar, you say.
I think the spacebar will be safer. Because keyboards I can deal with. 45 years in the industry will do that to you. Yeah, I got all kinds of weird equipment up here because I'm trying to keep an eye and make sure I'm on the right slide with my phone, and so I can see that. And I got my notes here, and we're ready to go. So, Hezekiah, king of Israel. Just for fun, of course, there's always history involved when Gregor teaches a class because, well, he's obsessed with history. So we're about 200 years removed from David, and we're about 250 years removed from Ezra. So we're right in the middle there someplace. He takes power about 12 years after the capture of the northern kingdom, but some other captures happen while he's king. Ahaz's father was a bad man, and I find it fascinating that Hezekiah was a believer given everything around him. It is just fascinating. Now why that is, it's got to be his mom. We know his name, his mom is Abby. We know her father was Zechariah, but as for which Zechariah he is undecided. There's actually a scribe later mentioned in part of the story named Zechariah, but we don't know if that was Abby's father or not. Some people think it is, so, daughter was faithful because dad was a scribe. But that's supposition. And Ahaz, since he was a faithless man, he did all kinds of things trying to keep Syria out of Israel, including bribery. And somehow Hezekiah comes out of this faithful. I just don't know how that is. That just fascinates me because it's always the chosen, it's always the few. The reading for today was broken up into 3 parts. 2 Kings 18 to 20 is a fantastic overview of everything. We will probably hardly ever be there tonight. 2 Chronicles focuses deeply on the restoration of the temple. And then Isaiah, though it does an overview of it is mostly focused on, quote, I put, quote, battle for Jerusalem in quotes because when the army is eliminated by an angel, it's not much of a battle. But it's just something to be, that's where the emphasis was for Isaiah. truly showing the power of God. Hezekiah's legacy. He started right off as soon as he went off, became king. He started right off into restoring the temple. His father had pillaged the temple for many things, so it was a mess. Nobody was following. Nobody was following the tenets of the Mosaic law. Right? There was literally like no Jewishness going on. They were worshiping in all the wrong places, doing all the wrong things. And Hezekiah is a fascinating story in Chronicles, how he brought everything together to try to bring Israel back to its roots. And I think it's a great, I'm surprised I didn't cover this in the lesson plan more. To me, it's a great example of, just like Ezra is, an example of restoration of the church, or restoration of faith. He led the priests back to the service of God. There were so few priests, he actually had to use general Levites for some things because they just didn't have enough people to do everything. Yes, he broke a lot of rules, and there seems to be almost a lesson in, what is, what's the word you constantly use, Brian? CE. There's an abbreviation for how we interpret the scriptures. CEN or something?
CENI. Yeah, the command example necessary.
Yeah, so I think there's a lot of necessary inference going on in how Hezekiah restores the church. He restores temple worship, and he restores the people to worship. He had to call them in. They had to do Passover twice because there was, so much information trying to gather people in. And then he brings in the Mosaic law. He actually restores them to the Mosaic law, bringing them back to the faith of God. And we learn at the end of the story that God did bless them for that. 710 BC. This is a few years after he became king. Samaria is taken by Assyrian king Shalmaneser. And in 702, Hezekiah offers tribute to the new king Sennacherib, king of Assyria, to try to stay away. I didn't hit the keys, did I? There we go. And in that, Sennacherib still sends his bad guy, Rabashak, in Isaiah 36, to threaten everybody and to do nasty things. The speech that Rabashak gives is, if you remember the story, or you remember the account, Rabashak is speaking in Hebrew so that everybody can understand it. And he's saying things trying to influence the people. He claims that Hezekiah is going to do the same thing that Hosea did and try to rely on Egypt. Well, that's not right. He claims that Hezekiah had the people of Israel sin against God by tearing down the high places. And he claims the futility of resistance because look at all the kingdoms we have conquered already. I mean, we're unstoppable. And then he attempts to bribe Hezekiah with 2,000 horses, and he claims that God ordained that the Assyrians should conquer Israel, and that's probably the worst thing that he could have ever done, because that sounds like a lot of reasons God went up and did his thing. Interesting, fascinating fact, they have clay pillars that they had in the palace with the history of the Assyrian conquests on them. And they were propaganda tools, of course. This is look how great we are. And the fascinating thing is the only city they don't cover in any way, shape, or form is Jerusalem. So they conquered all these cities and talked about how they conquered all these cities except for Jerusalem, which is the one battle that was terribly lost. So history confirms what the Bible says. And Hezekiah wasn't discovered as the king thought people just thought he was part of the story until the 1800s when they finally found archaeological evidence of him, including the Pool of Shalom, where Hezekiah had built a tunnel from one end where the water was to the other end where the Pool of Shalom is. He actually had people digging from both ends, and they met in the middle to build this waterway so the Pool of Shalom could be filled. And when you think that the channel in Great Britain was dug the same way, having two things come from both ends, with all the technology we have, and they were still like 8 inches off, you know, and how they did this with nothing is just fascinating to me. Now, Hezekiah's response, he humbles himself. And now we get to read. Could I grab somebody to pull up Hezekiah, Isaiah 37, 1 through 4.
I'll go break it.
Thanks, go ahead, Brian.
And so it was when King Hezekiah heard it that he tore his clothes, covered himself with sackcloth, and went into the house of the Lord. Then he sent Eliakim, who was over the household, Shebna the scribe, and the elders of the priests, covered with sackcloth, to Isaiah the prophet, the son of Amos. And he said to them, Thus says Hezekiah, this day is a day of trouble and rebuke and blasphemy, for the children have come to birth, but there is no strength to bring them forth. It may be that the Lord your God will hear the words of the Rabshakeh, whom his master, the king of Assyria, has sent to reproach the living God, and will rebuke the words which the Lord your God has heard. Therefore lift up your prayer for the remnant that is left.
So what do we notice about this Hezekiah's behavior when he's heard Rebekah's taunting, as it were, but he's also logically afraid because literally the Assyrians have been conquering the world all around them. Every city they've taken on, they've conquered. I mean, and they're egotistical enough that his army, the Assyrian army was at one city doing it, and he broke off a part of his army to go take care of Jerusalem because he was that confident that things were going to fall his way, the king. What do we notice about this? What do we notice about King Hezekiah? What does he do here?
He humbles himself.
He humbles himself deeply. Ashes or cloths and I just sackcloth. Whenever I think of sackcloth, I always think of burlap. I don't know what else it is, but I've always heard it equated with burlap, and when you think about that, all over your body is just, I'm sorry, that's wrong. But he also brought the scribes and the elders in. Starting in verse 5, so the servants of the king came to Isaiah. Isaiah said to them, Thus you shall say to your master, Thus says he the Lord, do not be afraid, because the words that you have heard, with which the servants of the king of Assyria have blasphemed me, behold, I will put a spirit in him so that he will hear a rumor and return to his own land, and I will make him fall by the sword of his own land. That is kind of a poetic justice when you think about it, that the king of Assyria is going to fall by his own petard, literally. Then we have Rabshakeh. I need to learn how to say that name. Hears about this rumor, and he goes off to come back. And when he comes back, let's read 37 in chapter 37, verses 8 through 13. Does anybody up for that? Okay. Yeah, please go ahead.
Then the Rabshakeh returned and found the king of Assyria warring against Libnah, for he heard that he had departed from Lachish. And the king heard concerning Turkah, king of Ethiopia. He has come out to make war with you. So when he heard it, he sent messengers to Hezekiah, saying, Thus you shall speak to Hezekiah, king of Judah, saying, Do not let your God in whom you trust deceive you, saying, Jerusalem shall not be given into the hand of the king of Assyria. Look, you have heard what the kings of Assyria have done to all the lands by utterly destroying them. And shall you be delivered? Have the gods of the nations delivered those whom my father have destroyed? Gazan and Haran and Rezeph and the people of Eden who were in Telsar. Where is the king of Hatman and the king of Arpad and the king of the city of Sepharvaim, Hena and Evan?
What does that sound like? That litany of names and stuff that he's reciting there.
Sounds like kingdoms they would know about, and maybe even mighty kingdoms trying to use human reasoning to not even have to fight.
They were well-known kings and kingdoms. They were all around them, and some of them were powerful. And it reflects again their hubris, because the phrase that, don't believe your God, don't believe your king. It is such a even a modern day mind game to tell somebody not to believe something, and to say that your God can't help you because we are too great. Sadly, does that not sound like some of the stuff we have to put up with today? People tell us that our God can't help us. Of course, the rules of the game have changed a little bit, because, as we know, we've already won through Christ. So the game's rigged, and I'm sorry, they're those who do not believe are not on the winning side. Anybody else have any thoughts on that?
Well, another thing you notice, he's comparing God, as all these other fake idols, and saying, well, these gods never help. Unfortunately, he's not trifling with a fake God. He's trifling with the real God.
There you go. I like that, trifling with the real God. Well, and I love Hezekiah's response. Hezekiah does absolutely the right thing. He prays. Verse 14. Then Hezekiah took the letter from the hand of the messengers and read it, and he went up to the house of the Lord and spread it out before the Lord. Hezekiah prayed to the Lord, saying, O Lord of hosts, the God of Israel, who is enthroned above the cherubim, you are God. You alone of all the kingdoms of the earth, you have made heaven and earth. Incline your ear, O Lord, and hear. Open your eyes, O Lord, and see. And listen to all the words of Sennacherib, who sent them to reproach the living God. Truly, O Lord, the kings of Assyria have devastated all the countries and their lands, and have cast their gods into the fire. For they were not gods, but the work of men's hands, wood and stone. So they have destroyed them. Now, O Lord, our God, deliver us from his hand, that all the kingdoms of the earth may know that you alone, Lord, are God. Anybody notice anything about Hezekiah's prayer? What do you think of that, what he said? Mm-hmm.
The choices, some of the words, and how he puts them together, I've always was impressed in this prayer.
As a what?
I was always impressed by this prayer. How he has put God up on a hill and shined a light on it. The way he you alone of all the kingdoms of the earth, that he knows God is special, 110%.
He exalted God. He praises him. What do you think about that? He thinks he's maybe about to be destroyed. Why is he praising God?
He knows that he has the power in verse 20 at the end, it says, "Now, O Lord our God, deliver us from his hand," and then it continues to say, "You alone, Lord our God." So he trusts in only him and realizes that he has the power to do so. That is his will.
Gregor, I thought too that one of the things I think is interesting about this prayer is that Isaiah doesn't appeal in making this petition to God. He's not appealing to him to say, hey, we're great people, you want to save us, or, in other words, how do you negotiate with God? And his point is, well, God, these are godless people who are saying you're not powerful. So in other words, he's saying, this isn't about just saving us. This is about your glory and honor too. And so he's appealing to God to say, God, don't save us because we deserve it. Save us because this would demonstrate to the world that you are God, and all these false gods that all the other men trusted were meaningless, but the false gods the Assyrians trust are meaningless too. And so it's kind of a note to us about how we negotiate with God. And we don't really negotiate because we have nothing to offer God. But we can say things like, this is God's glory, or this is to God's benefit that these things come about. And if that's a genuine truth, that's something that God would hear in this conversation.
So how often are we not positive in our prayers? Just something I know that I struggle with. But Hezekiah does such an elegant job here. I just love, as Al pointed out, I love the phraseology. And it is about exalting God and praising God because he is in charge. And to me, that's a great example of, why God listens.
You go to that story where Christ is telling about the Pharisee going to pray to God in the temple, and you have the sinner. Who was more righteous? It was a sinner who glorified God and knew his place, versus the one that glorified himself. And this is Hezekiah's probably his worst moment, where potentially losing everything. And being a king in that time, if your nation was conquered, you were certainly going to die. Yeah.
Well, he does have a worse moment later, but
at this moment.
Yeah, but at this moment so far, I mean, he's had a rough life anyway. I can't imagine being a believer growing up in the palace, or growing up with whatever reflected the palace. And your dad has sacrificed your brothers and sisters to other gods. I mean, I can't imagine what a life that is. But then we get an answer from Isaiah, and I'm going to go ahead and read verses 21 through 35 since it's a nice long read. Then Isaiah the son of Amos sent word to Hezekiah, saying, "Thus says the Lord God of Israel, because you have prayed to me about Sennacherib king of Assyria, this is the word that the Lord has spoken against him. She has despised you and mocked you, the virgin daughter of Zion. She has shaken her head behind you, the daughter of Jerusalem, whom you have reproached and blasphemed, and against whom have you raised your voice, and haughtily lifted up your eyes against the Holy One of Israel. Through your servants you have reproached the Lord, and you have said, with my many chariots I came up to the heights of the mountains, to the remotest parts of Lebanon, and I cut down its all tall cedars and its choice cypress, and I will go to its highest peak, its thickest forest. I dug wells and drank waters, and with the sole of my feet I dried up all the rivers of Egypt. Have you not heard? Long ago I did it. From the ancient times I planned it, and now I have brought it to pass, that you should turn the fortified cities into ruinous heaps. Therefore their inhabitants were short of strength. They were dismayed and put to shame. They were as the vegetation of the field, and as the green herb, as grass on the housetops is scorched before it's grown up. But I know you're sitting down, and you're going out, and you're coming in, and you're raging against me. Because of your raging against me, and because your arrogance has come up to my ears, therefore I will put my hook in your nose and my bridle in your lips, and I will turn you back to the way which you came. Then this shall be the sign to you: you will eat this year what grows of itself in the second year, that springs from the same, and in the third year sow. Reap, plant vineyards, and eat their fruits. The surviving remnant of the house of Judah will again take root downward and bear fruit upward. For out of Jerusalem will go forth a remnant, and out of Mount Zion survivors. The zeal of the Lord of hosts will perform this. Therefore, thus says the Lord concerning the king of Assyria, he will not come to this city or shoot an arrow there, and he will not come before it with a shield or throw up a siege ramp against it. By the way that he came, by the same he will return, and he will not come to this city, declares the Lord. For I will defend this city to save it for my own sake and for my servant David's sake. God plays a mean game there, doesn't he? In the words that Isaiah was relating. What did you notice? I mean, call it bragging if you want. It's God, he did it. It's not bragging if you did it, right? But I sort of love the way God takes his accomplishments and brings them forth saying, did you not know I did this? Did you not hear about this? All these things? I mean, when you think about it, it's the power that God has exuded over the centuries is just amazing. I mean, drying up rivers, causing floods, opening up waters, dividing them, having water come from rocks, just amazing stuff. Anybody notice anything about God's response besides the fact that it was almost like playing the same game back? It's to me, it's just amazing. Now, I don't know if you know this or not, but the Assyrians were famous for putting rings in people's noses and bridling their lips. It was the way they treated their slaves. That was a common practice. So God is letting them know that you're about to have the same game played on you. Does anybody else have any thoughts on that? Yes.
I like to say is God is saying he's going to humiliate them like they humiliate people. And I mean, imagine conquering all these nations and all of a sudden having to stop and never even be able to even attempt an offensive against Judah. That God drove them away before they could even do it. They didn't lose to a human army. They lost to the Lord.
Yeah. And that's just so amazing. We know the story of the Assyrian army being destroyed, and time is ticking, so we won't read that part. Now, during this time, Hezekiah falls ill. He's in the middle of this battle. He's in the middle of this terrible thing, and he also falls ill. When we read the different accounts, it seems apparent that he is actually ill during part of the end of this. So these areas overlap. It's very clear that, and while this was going on, Hezekiah falls ill. And I don't know what you know about boils, but we don't see them a lot in this country. Our technology is such that we have clean enough water. We have all kinds of benefits to keep from getting them. But boils are an ugly thing. It was something that Job suffered from. We know that it was quite painful. People could die from them because of the infections. But just suffice it to say that your entire body could be covered with great big, hard, sore, everything hurts kind of sores. I mean, I wouldn't say it's the worst pain you can imagine, but it's at least the most uncomfortable pain you can imagine. Let us look at Hezekiah's prayer in in Isaiah 38, 1 through 6. Somebody got that? They want to read that for me? Go ahead, Al.
1-6. In those days, Hezekiah was sick and near death. And Isaiah the prophet, the son of Amoz, went up to him and said to him, Thus says the Lord, set your house in order, for you shall die and not live. Then Hezekiah turned his face toward the wall and prayed to the Lord, and said, Remember now, O Lord, I pray, how I have walked before you in truth and with a loyal heart, and have done what is good in your sight. And Hezekiah wept bitterly. The word of the Lord came to Isaiah, saying, Go and tell Hezekiah, Thus says the Lord, the God of David your father, I have heard your prayer, I have seen your tears. Surely I will add to your days 15 years. I will deliver you and this city from the hand of the king of Assyria, and I will defend this city.
So what do you think about his prayer? Certainly short and elegant. What did Hezekiah do? Did he ask to be healed? Yeah.
What I see is he thinks he's just got told by the prophet he's gonna die, and he's like, remember, Lord, that I've done this, such as, you know, the thief on the cross where he says, remember your kingdom. That maybe he's going to God, I have, you know, followed your ways, remember this when I do go to Sheol, Hades. And he's trying to say, you know, just remember it.
Yeah.
He's not appealing for life.
Which I find fascinating. I don't know if I could do that. Which is something to think about, I suppose. But yeah, he was absolutely right. He didn't actually appeal for your life. He just said, here's where I'm at. And he wept bitterly, so he's showing a contrite heart. And it's not that he did anything wrong. Go ahead. I'm sorry, guys. That's something. No? Okay. Any other thoughts on his prayer? Okay. For verse 7, this shall be the sign from you from the Lord that will do this thing that he has spoken. Behold, I will cause the shadow on the stairway, which has gone down with the sun on the stairway of Ahaz, to go back 10 steps. So the sun's shadow went back 10 steps on the stairway on which it had gone down. I want to know how God does this stuff. Astronomy is one of my hobbies. I wouldn't call it a passion. As a kid, though, I was like working on building telescopes. I knew all the craters in the moon. I was, very, very space-headed. And when you think about what it takes to make the sun go backwards 10 steps, and in some translation, in other reaccounts, it's the sundial moves back 10 degrees. Okay, so a step in this case and a degree are about the same. And 10 degrees would be, what, an hour? About? Somewhere in there. The Earth would have, had to turn back an hour with everybody on it and nobody noticing? I mean, I'm sorry, that's amazing. We're spinning around at some 1,200 miles per hour on this planet in a circle. We don't feel it because it's so big, but it's just, amazing, and then all of a sudden it goes back. Just amazing. I'm sorry, that's just one of my little fascinations.
That'd be pretty freaky. You're outside and in the shade and it moves away from you and then comes back across you.
It would be. That would be freaky. I would qualify that as freaky.
It's a beautiful representation of how powerful God is, that he has the authority to dial back time on the sun like that, or just move it.
Well, and then you get into the whole concept of time, right? Because, he didn't obviously change time. He didn't alter time. He just altered the path of the earth. So everybody felt, it blows one's mind. Or maybe my mind's easily blown. I don't know. And then in Isaiah 39, we have, after he's healed, after the battle, after he's healed, all these wonderful things, Hezekiah pulls off one of the craziest things in the world. He shows some people from out of town everything. I'm trying to figure out why it just seems so out of character for Isaiah, or for Hezekiah to me. I'm not sure why he did this. Was it a moment of weakness that he was bragging? But I don't know if I get that. He just seems to be happily showing all this stuff. Maybe he's just pleased to have it, to give it to people, to show people what's going on. I don't know what that's about. Does anybody have any thoughts on where that came from?
I think once he had his near-death experience, it opened up his life, and he just wanted to show people that, because probably a lot of that stuff was from his father, and he says, "Come see my house." You know,
Yeah.
these people have never been in the palace before, and it also mentioned something in the study guide that after he had his little strike with life, that he started walking at a slow pace. He wasn't in a hurry anymore.
Yeah.
And
So maybe he was more of like, I appreciate all this stuff. You want to come see? You know?
yeah.
Brian?
I think 2 Chronicles 32, 24 to 25 also gives us a scoop too. It says, in the days of Hezekiah, he was sick and near death, and he prayed to the Lord, and he spoke to him and gave him a sign. And Hezekiah did not repay according to the faith shown him. His heart was lifted up, for wrath was looming over him and over Jerusalem. Hezekiah humbled himself with a pride of his heart, and the inhabitants of Jerusalem, so the wrath of the Lord did not come upon him in the days of Hezekiah. So it really looks like he had a pretty big view of himself as Mr. Big Stuff. And he had to be humble.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because it says he didn't repay according to the favor shown to him. So that favor shown to him was his life being extended. So I think the implication was that it was better off not to have his life extended.
Okay. I missed that. Thank you. Anybody else?
Gregor, quick comment. A little further on, where Ryan is too. It does say that regarding these ambassadors, it says that they came because of the wonder. They wanted to see what was done in the land. In other words, one of the reasons they had come was to see, because there had been some remarkable things that had happened between the army dying and Hezekiah surviving. But it says God withdrew from him in order to test him, that he might know all that was in his heart. And I've always thought that's a puzzling statement about Hezekiah and this idea that this was a moment of being tested. So these guys show up and they're, praising him, and God is testing him to see what kind of guy he is. This is, I just saved you. And if you think of maybe like the 10 lepers that Jesus heals and only one comes back to give thanks, it's a test to see, hey, if God gives you a second chance, what do you do with it? And so God is testing these ambassadors.
That makes a lot of sense. And he failed at least moderately, if not miserably. Yet, again, he humbles himself, and all things work out. And I know it's not part of our reading, but God is so pleased with some of the things that Israel has done that in Isaiah 40, it talks about how he blessed them again, turned around and blessed Israel. So Israel, got restored again for another 135 years until they get taken again because they're off the charts. But that is their history, isn't it? To do right and then wrong, and do right and then wrong. Questions. We do have questions. We're not going to get to all of them. I have no doubt about it. How did Hezekiah react to his death? We talked about it in the prayer a little bit, Chicken. Prayed. He prayed, and he didn't even say, "Save me."
me say his prayer sounded like he was ready for reality to happen.
Mm-hmm. That's a nice thought, though, that you to be ready for reality to happen, as you put it. In his prayer, we didn't read that part. In his psalm, that's what I was looking for. I wanted to read that because I just thought that was so beautiful.
I think question 2 is a trick question.
Yeah.
Because he didn't ask for his life to be extended. God offered that through his prayer.
Mm-hmm.
But he appealed to his behavior and how he had been so obedient and following the Lord and walking in the right way. So that verse 3 that you mentioned, that you've got noted there, is where it says, "Remember now, Lord, I beseech you how I have walked before you in truth and with a whole heart, and have done what is good in your sight." I think that's what he's appealing to.
Yeah.
How he had walked well.
I was looking for. I'm trying to remember where his psalm was.
Psalm 90.
Well, that's actually a psalm of David, but
Verse 12.
yeah, verse 12 is what he referred to. But he wrote a psalm after his. They changed things, something on my book. It's not happy. I'm pretty sure it wasn't, because it was, what I found fascinating is he wrote the psalm.
Are you talking about his psalm that's in
Isaiah.
38 verse, Isaiah 38 verses 10
Yeah, that's what I was looking for.
to 20?
I thought I'd written it down, apparently I hadn't, but yes. Because he does some interesting things there, and they talked about the symbolism. Yeah, starting in verse 9, a writing of Hezekiah, king of Judea, after his illness and recovery. I said in the middle of my life, I am to enter the gates of Sheol. I am to be deprived of the rest of my years. I said, I will not see the Lord in the land of the living. I will look on no man among the inhabitants of the world. Like a shepherd's tent, my dwelling is pulled up and removed from me. As a weaver, I rolled up my life. He cuts me off from the loom. And from the day until night, you make an end of me. I compose my soul into the morning like a lion, so he breaks all my bones. From day until night, you make an end of me. Like a swallow, like a crane, so I twitter. I moan like a dove. My eyes look wistful to the heights. O Lord, I am oppressed. Be my security. What shall I say? For he has spoken to me, and he himself has done it. I will wander about all my years because of the bitterness of my soul, O Lord. By these things men live, and in all these is the life of my spirit. O restore me to health, and let me live. Lo, for my own welfare, I had great bitterness. It is you who have kept my soul from the pit of nothingness. For you have cast my sins behind me, your back. For Sheol cannot thank you. Death cannot praise you. Those who go down to the pit cannot hope for your faithfulness. It is the living who give thanks to you, as I do today. A father tells his sons about your faithfulness. The Lord will surely save me, so he will play my songs on stringed instruments all the days of our life at the house of the Lord. It talks about the symbolism in the pamphlet of the three things. A tent being moved. So Hezekiah is looking at his life as just being a tent being moved from one condition to another. One could see that as a look of the afterlife. The tapestry I've always found fascinating the number of cultures that refer to life as some sort of weaving. I know in Nordic myth, you know, the fates wove your life with the threads of all your experiences. I'm not sure about the twittering of the birds. I get the moaning of the dove, because I mean, doves sound like they're sad all the time. I remember one time I was doing an audiobook and I had a couple of doves decided that was a good time to use my windowsill for their mating practices, and it was like frustrating because I couldn't get them to go away. They kept getting picked up on the microphone, but they're very mournful. You know, the coo is mournful, maybe relaxing. I don't know. What else do you know about his psalm that talks about what's going on for him?
We're at our time, but
Oh, this was my last question, but well, thank you, everybody, and I hope everybody has a great evening. And thank you so much for letting me present. And I'll be back in a couple of weeks with Ezra.